thanks for joining us again. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment as well. We want to hear and to know what you're thinking about as we talk about Kenyan football. My guest today is Lordrick Aduda. He is running for president of the Football Kenya Federation. I don't know if they're going to change the name of the federation, because we have had Kenya Football Association, we have had Kenya Football Federation, we have had Football Kenya Federation, we have had, I don't know where we're going at the moment. So I don't know if you're going to change the name as well. I don't know what happens when somebody takes over, but we know that there were a lot of issues before all these names were registered to run the football. But let's go deeper into this. 2 elections in this country for football have been nullified. You said previously that you're not going to run for president in a flawed election.
Right.
Now you have come back. Is it because you feel the ground has been leveled for the election?
Yes, it is true. I did mention I had taken a position that I was not going to participate in what I perceived to be a flawed election. Now, we find that in the first elections that was slated for 9th December last year, the nomination, procedures were basically skewed to favor the incumbent and was basically locking out any other potential candidature, to an extent that all the 20 branches were coerced to give out endorsements to one particular person. And the electoral rules required that for you to get nominated, you had to acquire at least nominations from 5 branches. But given that already the 20 branches as at then had issued the endorsements to one particular candidate or aspirant, then it meant that nobody else.
So you felt it was already skewed in one direction. Are you happy with it now?
Yes, in the sense that now it has been opened according to the FIFA regulations, that any 5 members of the federation are allowed to give endorsements.
Okay, so you're fine with it, so you're going to go for the elections. These 2 other elections were nullified. Is there any risk of this current one as well being nullified? Because a few other people who are running opted not to, saying it has been flawed. And we've seen about 2 other court cases have been filed even before the presidential election.
Well, as we speak, I am looking forward to the elections taking place. They might not be 100%, perfect. But for football to win, the elections must take place.
That's a powerful statement right there. Let's just leave it there. For football to win, elections must take place. Let's talk infrastructure. We just saw the opening of Nyayo Stadium the other day after about 2 or 3 years of it being closed. How important is it to have the right infrastructure at the right places and at the right time? What effect has it had on our football at the moment?
If you take the example of Nyayo, we find that quite a number of clubs playing in or participating in the Kenyan Premier League are domiciled in Nairobi. They have had challenges for the past 3 years that we mentioned, because Nyayo is central and Nyayo is affordable. But in the absence of Nyayo and with the closure of City Stadium, it left all these clubs with one stadium, which is the Moi International Sports Center, dubbed Kasarani, which of course is not cheap to
and it's not even 100% available. It is partially available.
Yeah.
Some clubs have been banned from playing there.
That is true. But even if the clubs are not banned from playing at Kasarani, 1, it is outreach. 2, it is expensive to hire, because like we find part of the policies that have been enacted by Sports Kenya is that a club will even be required to pay for the cleaning of the venue. I mean, those added expenses make it extremely very expensive to use Kasarani. Now, what do you expect? Assuming you've spent 130,000 shillings to hire the venue. It is a match that is being played on a Wednesday. You hardly have 500 fans getting into the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is your return on investment?
First of all, is football an investment? We are going there as well. Let's talk money and sponsorships. What is going on with clubs complaining about not having sponsorships? Are the sponsors shying away, or are the clubs not packaging themselves enough for the sponsorship? You have been CEO at Gor Mahia as well. What's the problem of Gor Mahia not getting big sponsors who can be able to take care of them?
No corporate will put money where there are chaos. So we must begin by fixing our governance structure. The governance structure is not just limited to the FA. It permeates down even to the clubs. What can we say about the leadership in our clubs, right from the grassroots to the Premier League clubs? There are certain clubs where we have individuals, being in charge of the day-to-day management of the clubs. We have seen clubs where players' dues are not paid in good time, but when they go to ask, what is duly their rights, we have seen goons being hired to go and harass these players, you get. So I believe that we must put our house in order in the first place before we start reaching out to those corporate
Do you have a list of sponsors that you want to reach out to? Assuming you were president today,
Yes.
who would you be reaching out to? How would you assure them that everything is safe at the stadium? A family that wants to go to the stadium, mother, father, and child, and another child too is good children to go to the stadium with. How can you assure them they're safe at the stadium?
I would like to ask you this question. You've been covering football at the Premier League level for quite some time now. When was the last time you saw the kind of hooliganism that we used to witness a couple of years ago during Gor Mahia matches?
Well, that went down. That totally went down. That's what I'm asking. How can you not attract them, the corporates?
That was the beginning of the transition. And that is why a corporate like SportPesa came on board. That's why a corporate like BetSafe has now come on board. That's why Patriots, agrochemicals is on board as, doing a corporate social responsibility with the club. There are lessons and the rest. Mm-hmm. Now, it is already beginning to show, even in what Chairman Dan Shikanda is doing with FC. Guys are now believing that with the tranquility, we can begin to try and put our money. I once did a presentation before some corporate board, and it was perfect. It went well. But the last question was, the money is here, but what will happen if tomorrow we find those Gor Mahia diehard fans, jumping on top of our vehicles because it was a service provider? So I was told, go and deal with that first and come back for the money. So that is why I, together with the leadership of God and the chairmanship of Mr. Ambrose Rachir, decided that we must begin by dealing with the issue of crowd or fun or hooliganism, crowd trouble or hooliganism.
It's hooliganism, that's what
Yes.
it's called. And in fact,
Right.
the question would still be, even if you were on a presidential debate today, what's your prescription for hooliganism? What will you do to make sure it doesn't rear its ugly head?
Now, we take cue or we learn from, good practices. We have a history of the worst, incidences of hooliganism, say in England or in Italy. How did they deal with it? We've had an opportunity where we need to interact with the football fans. I mean, what in simple terms I would say, educate, the fans, programs to enlighten the fans that it's not a matter of life and death. I mean, football is for enjoyment also.
The paradox here is that you still need to assure the corporates that they will be safe or that the game is safe for them to put money to educate the fans on how
it
they
is
keep
not,
the game safe.
it is not a one-off.
It's not a one-off.
It is a systematic, process. We cannot sit and cheat ourselves that, for instance, tomorrow I wake up, the president, I call a press conference and
say no more, then it disappears.
No.
So you're saying it's a process.
It is a process.
And it might take long.
And it sequentially, and there are many other, stakeholders that must be involved in that particular process.
Okay.
The second thing is like what we have managed to do at Gor Mahia. The stewards must, or we must engage stewards. Now, these stewards, one, live with these guys within their areas of residences. So if, for instance, we are in the stadium and Bernard Otieno is causing problems, I am the steward. I know definitely that that is Bernard, So in an event that Bernard has, really misbehaved, it is easy for me to go and identify or to go and get hold
of So the stewards are more like, they know, they live with them, they know the people they're
yes.
actually marshalling.
Yes.
They're like
and
community marshals.
Yes, and we can be able to use them, even when the matches are not on, because most of the time they are with these guys wherever they are.
Well, I've seen other situations where the hooligans themselves were made to be part of the security, so then
it became
even more easier.
Yes.
Let's talk money, because the ultimate problem, I think, in football is money and politics. Two things. The sports fund, what's your take on it? If you were president and this COVID situation caught up with you at that time when you were president, how would you have dealt with it? The stimulus package by the government and the sports fund, and then the resumption of training for Premier League clubs?
Well, the sports fund, I believe, the idea to shift it under the management of the Treasury was wrong. Because my understanding at where it is domiciled at the moment is that money can be, or funds can be picked from that fund to, for other uses which
because it's
are
within
not
the national treasury.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But if, as it was destined in the earlier, instances, to be a fund that was supposed to, enact or be used to enhance the management and development of sports, then it ought to,
You
be
think
reversed.
it should have remained only for
yes,
sports?
for sports.
But then the other argument would also have come in. What about the other taxes that are paid by other people? They still go to sports as well. Why can't the sports taxes also go to other things as well?
But why was it called a sports fund in the
Because
first
there was
place?
money coming from sports. But I don't have the answers. I'm just thinking. What about the government of Kenya stimulus package, the one that was given to players of Premier League teams?
Well, I think it was timely. It might not have been, what was expected by the clubs or the players, but it helped the players during that particular moment. Because you see, when COVID manenos came, nobody was prepared for such kind of an occurrence. So we had to look into ways and means of dealing with the person, the integral person in sport, who is the athlete. The athlete or the sports person, the sportsman or the sportswoman, without whom we have no sports, whether
Absolutely.
Football or
the participant.
the participant,
have to be
yes.
there.
So it was important for the government, right, to ensure that despite the fact that COVID had disorganized everything, the athlete had to be cushioned a little bit, not to the expectations, but there had to be something that had to be channeled to the sports persons.
Okay. You have challenges for this seat that you're going for. They're selling their manifesto as well. They're selling football machinani. They're selling money in bringing more money to the Premier League. What is Lordrick Aduda selling for the Premier League or for football in general?
Well, football, you cannot run football without money. Let's begin with. There has been this obsession of the money from FIFA. FIFA does not run football in any given country. FIFA supports the development of football.
With some good money.
With some good money. Now, this money is from FIFA.
How many millions is it? Is it $5 million, $50 million?
It's 1 point something million dollars.
Okay.
All right? But this money from FIFA does not come as a blanket fund. It is prorated to take care of certain segmented, parts of the football development. There is money meant for technical development of the referees and the coaches. There's money meant for the development of women football. There is money meant for, capacity building in terms of leadership, yes. And there is money meant for senior or A-team, national teams, participation. But that is not enough. If we want to get more money into the federation, then, for instance, if you look at Article 81 of the FKF Constitution, it talks about the rights. Now, these rights belong to FKF and its members. Now, the members of FKF are the referees, are the coaches associations, are the players associations, all this.
All the stakeholders,
all the
everybody
stakeholders
involved in football.
Right.
Okay.
Now, we have several segments of those rights. Yeah, audiovisual, live broadcast, relays, radio, and mention them. So it is important for these rights to be exploited. Mm-hmm. But what I am seeing happening now is a trend that we should not let continue. Because we are using that kind of latitude to attain political gain, which is wrong. What do I mean? We have the latest issue now, some $1.1 million every year, $8.2 million, for 7 years for media and commercial rights, so there's going to be money in the federation. People should think twice about some of these things. The deal between FKF and StarTimes, we are told that it is FKF that is going to produce the matches. And if they are going to produce a minimum of 100 matches, at least 100 matches per season, and the cost of production of one match is a minimum of $6,000. So quick math, for 100 matches at $6,000, that will translate to $600,000.
Well, but they're saying there will be other sponsors on board to help that as well.
We must take them to account on what they say,
Okay.
not what they will do. We are
Right.
talking about what is already there.
What's already
now, $600,000 is 60 million Kenya shillings. $1.1 million is 110 million shillings. If you already take 60 out of 110, you are remaining with 50 million shillings. We are telling us that the 18 Premier League clubs, the 20 Super League clubs, the Starlets, because their friendly matches will be beamed live, then the Stars, because their matches are going to be, friendly matches are going to be beamed live. So how much money will be apportioned to each of these 4 or 5 categories at the end of each and given year? I mean,
Okay.
is it worth selling our media and commercial rights for a pittance just because we want to go in for elections? I mean, it is...
So it's always good to do the mathematics, but the other mathematics we need to do as well is, if you were there, how would you bridge that gap? What would you
First,
do?
I would not sell.
You would not sell.
I would not sell.
So there would be no money for the clubs.
I would not sell the media and commercial rights for a pittance.
So you'd sell it at a higher value.
At a higher value.
Okay. Do you have anybody in mind? Because you're going into elections, you must sell this manifesto, you must sell these chances. Do you have anybody in mind who you will sell to the delegates and tell them, this is what I'm going to do? Or have you already sold it?
I have already sold it to the delegates. I would not hesitate to say that I am not going to be new at this. I have done it before. For instance, the last time I sold the rights for Gor Mahia is when we were playing against DC Motema Pembe. We were able to get money that enabled us to pay for the production as well as to handle a bit of our match management logistics. And that was just one match, you get, yeah? Which was about a minimum of $12,000, yeah? So if one match can give us $12,000, all right? So why should we sell our 34 matches for less than 2 million shillings?
Okay. So you're thinking that we have been sold short
Yes.
of the value that we
Yes.
should be having, and which is something that you will need to correct if you get there. We don't have much time, but I want to give you another chance again to convince me, if I was a delegate, to vote for you during the elections. And like I've told you, the others are selling Mashinani football, they're selling also bringing money, sponsorship and all that. What is your strongest selling point? Or, let's put it the other way around, spend 1 minute and convince me to vote for you if I was a delegate.
There are two aspects of football. There's the management and the development aspect of football. With regards to the development aspect, there's been absolutely no attempt. I intend to bring on board, key stakeholders whom, when we move together, we will lay the foundation of a proper youth development program, because that ultimately is what is going to give us the desired results. Football now is a multi-million-dollar business. It is an industry. What I am seeing happening now is the rush to place products, unfinished products, on the shelves in the supermarkets, whereas we do not bother to ensure that we go out, identify the raw material, nurture the raw material, take it through a rigorous production process before we end up with it at the shelves. The shelves, in my view, are the international sporting arenas. Those international friendly matches, those CAF, AFCON qualifiers, those FIFA qualifiers for all the
the continental events, for the world events,
the youth,
the
you know,
yeah.
all these kind of things.
Yes.
Because what is our best? Our best, when we exhibited our best, the local best, against Eritrea, what was the result? In the last edition of Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup. I mean, we cannot fathom Eritrea beating Kenya 4-1, Bernard. Really, it means there's something. Not there's something amiss with that aspect. Because the local-based players are the ones whom we need to nurture, you know, and that is where it matters. So I would wish to engage once again, like I did before, yes, with, say, the Ministry of Education. There is a talent desk under the Directorate of Quality Assurance and Standards, and bring back the talent centers. At some point, there were certain schools that were designated as talent centers. When I was doing my stint as the Secretary General of FKF, I did have, you know, discussions with the ministry, and we developed an MOU where, like the girls, the women football was being fully funded through the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Sports and UNICEF, something which is now not there. We had an understanding that the under-17 and under-20 women national teams were being fully taken care of, and they were training at Matu Memorial Girls, which was a talent center. You know, now we have the Kenya Primary School Sports Association, for instance. Yeah, if we get into the FIFA, what FIFA considers as the football age, it begins at around age 12. Now, a young boy or a young girl of age 12 are in school. 8 months out of the 12 months in any given year, the boys and girls are in the schools. So why don't we begin by engaging, you know, or enhancing capacity, or technical capacity of the games masters and games mistresses, so that from that tender age, once they identify the players, they can begin to start nurturing those talents.
So we start right at the rock bottom.
At the rock bottom.
Do you feel you are the person to be able to do this?
I
What's the quality in you that says, I am the one who can do all this?
First, I must have a personal conviction, which I have. Having seen or having enabled other people, because I've enabled almost the entire strata of the guys who have been there before, including the outgoing president. They passed through my hands. But given that I did not have, you know, the final say on what needs to be done, you know, you had to care to have some of these things, you know. I believe that if I have a direct access with the governors, right, or the actual stakeholders, have my time with them, convince them that these are the steps that we need to enact, then we will begin the journey to transform the Kenyan football, but by initiating, you know, or laying down a foundation. Now that foundation must originate from the grassroots. From that grassroots, I also believe that I would want to put in place what I refer to as a lifetime player license, such that once you have been identified at age 12, you will have one license that you will carry through your entire footballing period.
Okay.
Now, the production of that license, if you give me a minute, is also a revenue stream. Because if, for instance, one license costs or we charge $1 for one license, you know, and we use 40 shillings to produce that license, it means that we have a balance of 60 shillings. Now, these 60 shillings, we can sit down with the governors and look at means and ways of apportioning the 60 so that there is an amount that remains at the sub-branch, there is an amount that remains at the branch, and there's an amount that comes to the national office. So you can imagine how many Kenyan children.
Okay. But this would obviously come with good governance from the grassroots. That's what you're saying.
That is the same.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Lordrick Aduda, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you too.
We wish you the best in the elections now that you've agreed that you will participate in it.
Yes.
And we are waiting to see what you will do for Kenyan football once you get up there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sawa.
Lordrick Aduda, well, he has said it all. He has been in it. He knows it, right from licensing to everything else that is football. And he says he's got what it takes to be able to put football where it should be. We will see when that happens and when the elections take place as well. We must thank you for joining us again. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also to leave us a comment. We will see you again next week. We shall be talking more football next week. And maybe nearing the elections, we shall know what already is happening in there. And we will bring it to you on your favorite sports show, Bonga Futaa. See you then.